Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me, as always, are my co-hosts and friends, confidants, BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. And this is our Champions League preview for Tuesday, November 7th and Wednesday, November 8th. So we'll take you through match by match and give out our favorite bets as we get to them. But before we do this, we go on this handicapping adventure. A reminder that Wondergoal is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 does not do ordinary. It believes that every sport should be epic, every tournament, every game, every point, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar, see for yourself when you sign up with promo code ACTION, and you'll get $365 in bonus bets when you bet just $1. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older. You must be present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in BJ's home state of Iowa. Terms and conditions apply. So we got 16 Champions League matches coming up. The slate is very tilted towards Wednesday being the better one. I know last match day was the opposite, with Tuesday being the better one. It's just the way that the schedule's worked out. So we'll do our best to make Tuesday seem interesting before getting to Wednesday, which I think is plenty actionable. But we'll start with the headliner on Tuesday, which is Dortmund and Newcastle in Dortmund at the Yellow Wall, where Dortmund is a plus 162. Slight underdog. It's even unfair to call them that. It's basically a pick 'em on the three-way line. It's Newcastle plus 160 and the draw is plus 250. Anthony, let's get this party started.
Yeah, so I do show a little bit of value on Newcastle. There's always a question of what do you make of what just happened, right? Because all of these matches that we just had were all played 2 weeks ago in the opposite arena. So you don't want to overreact to one game, but I think you can learn a few things from it that matter for the next game. The biggest thing for me was the first half, because I thought Dortmund came out with a clear plan to kind of press Newcastle and to turn the tables on Newcastle, as Newcastle often does to other teams. And it was pretty effective. They got a lot of turnovers in the middle of the pitch. They broke with numbers into space a lot, created a ton of chances. Could have been up 2 or 3 if they had some better finishing. Get the goal late before half. But then Newcastle kind of turned the tide in the second half. It was all one-way traffic. The Magpies dominated the second half. So, I didn't think the market took a lot of Newcastle money. When we did the show, they were minus 135. They ended up closing minus 170. If you just change home field, this would have put you right around minus 145. So this number is not quite giving enough respect to Newcastle based off of just purely the close last week. If you wanted to just do that and say that the closing line is efficient, then it's probably too low. That being said, I did think the closing line was too high 2 weeks ago on Newcastle when it did get up there at minus 1 flat. So from this matchup, there are some, fatigue concerns for Newcastle after what was a very, very physical match on Saturday. They basically went to war with Arsenal for 90 minutes. Dortmund didn't even show up on Saturday, so they should be well rested. I don't really have a strong opinion here, but I would, if you made me bet it, I would take Newcastle.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think almost it's pretty simple here. Is that we believe Newcastle to be one of the best teams in all Europe, and even on the road here in a tough environment, probably deserve to be a favorite. I guess a Dortmund team, like you said, they just had a litmus test this weekend, and they failed it after obviously passing with flying colors against Newcastle in that litmus test. So a slight buy low situation with maybe people like Anthony a little trepidatious about betting Newcastle after what they saw against Dortmund in the, if you want to call it, the first leg of these little two match series. So I do think that there's some value on Newcastle. And I'll be on them, BJ.
I agree. I'll be on Newcastle too. So what I found interesting from the Bayern match is that of how Bayern essentially created all their chances and scored all their goals. So obviously things kicked off with a set piece goal. Well, if you're going to face Newcastle, they've been a top 5 team in terms of XG created off set piece over the last year and a half in the Premier League. And then essentially once Bayern went ahead, just everything came in transition. It just happened over and over and over again. And that's just what it comes down to, is that game state's going to be very, very dependent here. It's easy to press high and try to disrupt build-up play when it's a 0-0 game state. It's a lot harder to do when you're obviously in the lead. And that's essentially what happened with Dortmund in that first match in Newcastle, is when they got the goal, they just kind of sat off and they just said, okay, we got our goal and we're going to try to defend deep here and keep Newcastle out. And guess what they did? They kept them out, but especially at the end, I know there wasn't a lot of, high quality chances. The XG won't bear it out, but there were a lot of late flurry chances for Newcastle that very well could have just bounced one way and gone to create a high quality chance. So I still think the matchup's not great for Dortmund. Now there's obviously some, personnel issues here for Newcastle. Botman's out. It looks like Dan Burn's going to miss this match as well. Obviously no Ishak. So it's kind of a tough situation for Newcastle. But again, if Dortmund can come out and press them right away, but I think Newcastle will be ready for it this time. I'm guessing they weren't ready for it. And the other thing that Newcastle is doing that I find interesting is that they're not pressing in the usual 4-3-3 anymore. It's now a 4-5-1. So they're trying to win the ball more as a mid block. And you kind of saw it against Wolves and against Manchester United, where they're not just like all out relentlessly pressing high. They're kind of trying to win the ball in the midway line. I think they're realizing that with the strain of the Champions League and the Premier League, that they can't just all out press and be that physical, playing 3 matches in a week. So I think they're sitting off a little bit more. I think that will give them a better opportunity here. And plus this is a Dortmund. So I have a high, maybe I'm wrong, but I find it hard to believe that Dortmund's just going to hand Newcastle the ball again and say, hey, here you go. You can have the ball for all 90 minutes and we'll just sit deep and try to defend or try to press you out of possession. So if Dortmund is the one controlling line of possession, that obviously gives Newcastle a better advantage here. I projected a little bit of value on Newcastle because honestly with Dortmund, they're they're a little under a +0.5 expected goal per 90 in the Bundesliga this season. That's with playing a pretty weak schedule upcoming towards the match against Bayern. Well, Newcastle's still over a 1 XG differential per 90 minutes. So from a projection standpoint, obviously the Premier League being a more difficult league than the Bundesliga, it's a pretty significant gap here for in terms of where you would project Newcastle comparatively to Dortmund. So did project a little bit of value on Newcastle. So I like them drawing a bet at -105.
Okay. From there, the slate gets a whole lot swampier, so to speak. So we might breeze through a few of these. Shaktar is a 9-1 underdog at home hosting Barcelona. Barca coming as a -400 favorite, and the draw is +550. The Newcastle Dortmund match is at 12:45 as the headliner on Tuesday, and this is the other one. And there are a lot of Barca fans out there, a lot of huge Barca fans who would just watch Barcelona play whenever they're on. But I think that the neutral fans are probably going to gravitate towards Dortmund and Newcastle here in this 12:45 time slot. So let's quickly talk here. Can you find anything actionable in this match, BJ?
If you were to play a side in this match, I would play Shaktar +1.5. I am not going to, because the last match between these two, a lot of Barca's key players were rested or were injured. So you're going to see Lewandowski, you're going to see De Jong, you're going to see Pedri. And Shaktar, they got blitzed early in this match. Barca created a couple of big scoring chances right off the bat. And then Shaktar kind of settled into the match. They started playing a little bit better. One thing to look out for Shaktar, they do have a new manager, assistant from Feyenoord. It was his first match in charge against Barcelona. So very odd, weird situation going on there. We played the under 3.5, and that one, it's just too much here for the reverse leg. I believe we'll be playing in Hamburg, not in Ukraine. So no, it's just if you were to play somebody, I actually am showing a little bit of value on Shaktar. But if Barca is going to play a full strength lineup, given the fact that they had a good first leg against Shaktar in terms of, they created over 2 expected goals. So this could be one-way traffic, so I'm just gonna just sit it out.
I
You
still
look at
think
the
there's
table,
some
too.
questions about the Barca transition defense. That was on display against Sociedad on Saturday. I did not think they played well in that match. Kind of stole it late. But there are some real questions about that. I think that's something to watch going forward as they play better teams. Shaktar was able to get one on the break at Barca, but
the only team to score them at Champions League so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think and like the table kind of comes into play here, where I think that Shaktar knows their path to advancing would probably be just don't get blown out here, then pull the upset against Porto and beat Antwerp.
Just beat Antwerp. That's all I need to do. Get to the Europa League.
So maybe just try to keep it respectable and just park the bus from. The opening kick is the way you can kind of game theory and underplay or Shaktar plus 1.5. All right, I am underselling the next match. I guess like the slate isn't that bad. The group of death is giving us some fun here. So we'll look at Milan as a plus 210 underdog at home against PSG plus 120, and the draw is plus 260 for this one. Group F, this is the situation. PSG on the top at 6. Dortmund and Newcastle are tied at 4 points apiece right behind them, and then it's Milan at the foot with 2 points. So you could call this a little bit. It is a must-win game for Milan at home against PSG here, I would say. I kind of lean towards, I want to bet PSG.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they're the better team. They're in better form. Milan doesn't score. I know they should be defending well with the way that they set up, and this game should be kind of slow and lumbering, but PSG scores 2. I think it's over, Anthony.
Well, the first leg was terrible from a watch perspective.
Yeah.
It was nothing happened. PSG had the ball, then they had the ball. Milan just let them have the ball. And then eventually PSG was able to pass it to Mbappe, who rinsed a defender and scored, and it was 1-0. Dembele then rinsed a defender and scored, and it was 2-0. And then they got a third goal in transition and stoppage time, as is the tradition of the season, because I had the under 2.5. Now, the under 2.5 has not moved a ton, right? It was plus 114 when I bet it in the first leg in Paris. Now we're in Milan 2 weeks later. There's not really anything that's changed with the two teams. I think the biggest notable takeaway was Hakimi against Leao. As good as Leao is, having somebody who can match him athletically was a huge key for PSG defensively when there were rare times when Milan looked like they might create something. Milan has to turn it up, though. Like you said, they haven't scored yet. This is the group of death. They played 3 matches, one against a bad Dortmund defense, and they didn't score, and they didn't really look like scoring against PSG. Total expected goals was 1.6 last week. So
they had that one game against Newcastle, the opener, where they should have scored 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they scored 0.
Yep. And they're still they're kind of tweaking now, right? They're switching out formations. Over the weekend, they were really bad against Udinese at home. Okafor came on in the second half. They didn't get any better. Like Jovic, and they benched Pulisic. Like Pioli has recognized the issue here. They're not getting enough shots, and Giroud has not been great. I just don't really know that they have a fix for it. So there's still a plus 108 out there on under 2.5. I think I'm going to bet it again. First half under 1-2, maybe split it. This comes out slow because I really think PSG can strangle control, and Milan's just not built to press. If you can't press PSG and you let them have the ball, it's tough.
And that's what they tried to do in the first leg. They went man-to-man with PSG in that first leg, and that's a really, really dangerous game to play against Mbappe and Dembele, and you saw what happened. They got cooked, which was a very weird strategy. You thought Pioli might just sit back and play very deep, but no, he was trying to come out and put pressure on them, and he can't do that here in the second leg, so he doesn't really have many options. So he's either going to have to sit deep and try to play in transition, or he's just going to have to try to all-out blitz again and just hope for the best. And they obviously don't have the personnel to do it. I think Theo Hernandez is still out as well, so that obviously hurts AC Milan's ability to get up that left wing. So now I don't know what they do. It's a very weird conundrum that they're in, and I'm not sure that they have a fix for it right now. Yeah,
so I do think as a road favorite, I'm I'm interested in PSG here.
I'm sorry, Theo Hernandez. It looks like he is back. My bad on that one. But still.
Okay. Now time to talk about the team of the podcast, Anthony's boys, Los Colchoneros, the mattress makers, coming off of a very unlucky defeat. Shout out to Country Lawyer, a listener of the pod who has just been riding the Las Palmas train in La Liga this season.
They're the best.
Love seeing that. Just absolutely
love
seeing it.
I love them.
A nice Friday afternoon win.
Oh yeah.
For one of our listeners, that was great to see.
The fact that I didn't fade Atleti in that spot means that I've fully lost my fastball. I sent this to Avery Zimmerman, our soccer editor, and BJ. I've just lost my fastball to not have money on Palmas on Friday. I had bet Palmas they would have lost 3-0.
We could have told you that during the tennis U.S. Open. Watch you handicap that. The Atleti train keeps rolling despite the loss. They are minus 334 favorites, hosting Celtic, who are coming in at 9-1. The draw is plus 450. I love Diego Simeone, but you will not find me laying this kind of number. I'd actually be a little tempted by Celtic here, BJ.
Yeah, I'm very tempted by Celtic as well. I know the final XG got super inflated for Atletico because Griezmann missed the penalty, and they obviously tapped it back in. So that's 1.5 of the, I believe, 2.3 that they created. So essentially 0.8. I thought Brendan Rodgers had a good game plan. They obviously scored in the fourth minute to put themselves ahead. But then I thought he just kind of does what they do. It's an interesting matchup from a price perspective. Atleti closed at about even money against Celtic in that first leg. So if you were to just flip home field, there is a little bit of value on Celtic here. Like that, you can't tell me that home field is going to be worth essentially 150 points in the Champions League is what we're talking about right now, or 120, whatever it is right now. So yeah, I did project a little bit of value on Celtic. They press well out of possession. Atleti's trying to be more a possession dominant side right now with this new style that Simeone's playing. So Celtic could cause some problems here on the road.
I mean, this is the Build Your Courage Play of the Week Part 2. Last time was I got to find the courage to get to Celtic plus a half at home, and I think that there's certainly an interesting underdog. Probably my favorite Tuesday underdog on the board if you wanted to find one. But yeah, probably going to end up passing here, take my money from last time and run.
And run right to Lazio and Feyenoord. That's where you're running to.
My actual team. They're going to win the group, potentially.
We'll see. Lazio's plus 155, so a very slight home favorite here. We the Nord, plus 170. And the draw is plus 240 for this match. Obviously, these odds and all the other odds I've been citing are from our friends at Bet365. Yeah, so this group, it's the most. It's up there with the most interesting, like the way it's situated. I think Feyenoord at the top on 6 points. Our boys Atleti on 5. And then there's Lazio at 4, and Celtic, they're still not done either. They're in a must-win spot at the Wanda Metropolitano on 1 point. I think that if you listen to our preview pod and you saw that this was the two-step match, the same two teams playing each other back-to-back, you could have probably surmised that Anthony would be leading the charge here on back-to-back bets on the Dutch.
Well, I will say the market has taken notice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Nord has put people on notice, and there has been attention paid. There's finally respect for the Nord. We closed +1 at Atleti. We closed -110 at home against Lazio. Beat the brakes off them. I know what the final XG said. Final XG said that Lazio was about even with Feyenoord, but if you go through how that game played, it was Feyenoord beat the shit out of them for 65 minutes, and then Lazio created all of their chances once they were down 2-3 goals. And got a consolation goal that didn't really mean anything. Now the market has corrected because if you just flipped home field from the -110 close 2 weeks ago in Rotterdam, then Lazio would be a home favorite here. They are not. They are now a pick'em. So the market has downgraded Lazio and upgraded Feyenoord. I still don't know that it's gone far enough. I think Feyenoord is a clearly better team. So if you were to bet this, it would be Feyenoord or nothing again. I mean, we've talked about this team time and time again. What they did to Lazio wasn't rocket science. I mean, Lazio plays in Serie A where nobody presses anymore, and they were completely overwhelmed by Feyenoord in the midfield, and they were not able to keep possession and recycle the ball. Luis Alberto is used to a lot of time on the ball in Serie A because he doesn't get pressed. He had no time to do much of anything. Immobile is fit, it looks like. Castellanos has been playing really well for them. You know, that's encouraging. But again, like Lazio this week at Bologna, totally flat, poor against Fiorentina. Like there's nothing in this team that suggests they're any good. So I would ride with the Nord, boys. One more time. We the Nord. Actually, I shouldn't say one more time because there's going to be multiple more times. If things go as I think.
I know you have a date circled in Rotterdam.
In the
with a certain
right?
team from Spain, with a certain team from Spain coming to town.
My market
Big
senses
mistake.
are telling me that we are going to be a home underdog in that match.
Which is
And
kind
I
of
haven't
insane.
seen a look ahead yet.
Rightfully so.
But 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, you can pencil that in. I mean, we're going to be a home underdog to Atletico Madrid. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have a lot of times when we have these back-to-back matches, you have to ask yourself, okay, what's going to change this time around for me to essentially bet the other side, or for the other side to have some success? We know what Sarri ball is. It's not transitional over the top ball. It is put the ball on the floor and let's try to work our way around presses, try to bait the press in and try to play through that. And like Anthony mentioned, nobody presses in Serie A anymore, at least to the intensity that Feyenoord comes with. I mean, Arne Slot's press is just all out in your face all the time. And Lazio was not ready for it. And I don't think they're going to be ready for it again. Feyenoord did have a little slip up in the Eredivisie. They lost to 20, who's having a meteoric rise this season, but they came back and put 4 XG on the weekend. So they're back. They're fine. They're obviously so much better with Jimenez in there. Like he was awesome against Lazio. So I don't think the market, I agree with Anthony. I don't think the market's gone far enough here. I think Feyenoord should be a road favorite against Lazio.
The thing about Feyenoord, if you have quality passers in your midfield that can play through a press, this defense can get exposed very fast. And we've seen that. And even Roma, like last year in the Europa League, did that to them to a lesser extent. But if your plan is just play route one football, which is what I think Lazio is going to have to do, it's just not going to be effective.
That's not how they're built. Like that's not their game plan.
Lazio's Sarri ball is keep the possession, long drawn out sequences, and they're just not that comfortable. I mean, like a mobile is going to run the channels. I don't think so. So I'm loving the Nord here.
All right, that's 3 of us on Feyenoord on the road. I want to see where this goes to this line. Could we see some late steam on Feyenoord? And it feels like everybody hates Lazio, so I wouldn't be surprised. The last 3 games on Tuesday are tough, so let's breeze through them pretty quickly together. Red Star is hosting Leipzig. Red Star plus 450 at home. Leipzig minus 188. The draw is plus 350. Then Porto minus 275 against Antwerp at plus 750 on the road. And the draw is 4-1 there. Man City, baby. Who could have seen this one coming? They're starting to score goals. Minus 1,400 against Young Boys, who are 25-1.
Not even close.
25-1.
Give me 50 and then we'll have a conversation. I mean, Red
Star. Young Boys or Belgrade? Who's better?
Belgrade. I mean, Belgrade was a home favorite against them. And they closed it they closed it around 40. I guess it wasn't closed, but they opened around 40-1. Red Star did. So now we're only 25 on Young Boys. I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
I mean
they got trucked in Switzerland.
The only match of those 2 that I would even consider is, watch the status of Haaland. Right, he comes off. It wasn't quite right in the win against Bournemouth. Picked up a knock.
I can't see him playing. I mean,
Right.
these guys do funky stuff, but he shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, I don't think they need him to beat the young boys, who gave up 4 expected goals in the last meeting. But
they got trucked.
I'm intrigued by Belgrade.
Finally.
I thought Leipzig's performance. I thought Leipzig's performance at the weekend was shocking. I watched every minute of that match. It was the underperformer Mainz, team that's had the worst luck versus the luckiest team in Germany and Leipzig, and like so many of their attacks broke down before the penalty box. It wasn't like they were constantly putting pressure on in the Mainz penalty area. It was everything was breaking down before. Now the midfield is worse here, so I do think Belgrade's going to be up against it. Their defensive numbers have not held up in this group whatsoever, but this Leipzig team is vulnerable. So if you wanted to get crazy, you could look at like a first half team total. I wouldn't hate a first half team total under on Leipzig, like something more derivative as opposed to just taking the +1. Team to score first, Red Star Belgrade, something of that nature. I think is the best way to play this because I just don't think Leipzig is its best.
What about you, BJ?
Yeah, I'll mention
City, the Red Star score first.
Yeah, I'll mention Porto and Antwerp. The Porto won this match 3-1, but there was only 2 expected goals created in the first one. And really what happened was Antwerp, when they're playing in Belgium, they are built out of the back team, a very possession-dominant team, and they kept trying to do that. And Porto just played a mid-block, and they just kept turning them over. So I think the second leg around here, you'll see them play more Route 1 football. Antwerp actually a very good defense in Belgium this season. They've had some bad penalty luck. They've already conceded 5 penalties domestically, but only allowing 0.84 non-penalty per 90 in Belgium. And obviously Porto's defensive numbers in Portugal are fantastic. And really, the first 2 goals of this match came off deflections. So that obviously, is a low-quality chance. And with Antwerp scoring first, obviously the game state, it changes the perspective of it because Porto had to be more aggressive and come out and press. Whereas if Porto were to scored first, they could have just sat back and just sawn this match out 1-0, and Antwerp wouldn't even sniff their goal. So under 2.5 is at +115. I believe the first leg closed around -110. So I think you're just getting a little bit of an inflated price on what happened in that first leg, even though, again, not a lot of high quality chances were created from an expected goals standpoint.
On to Wednesday now. Wednesday is, I think,
this is great.
Going to be quite fun. And the party gets started at 12:45 p.m. and we'll go into the late afternoon. We'll start with Bayern and Galatasaray. Boy, do we love this team. Bayern, we don't love this team. Ruined the underdog parlay, which once again hit 2 out of 3. This time we didn't have a crushing come from behind defeat. We just had Bayern.
We had a great what we had was a wonderful moment. Wonderful moment at Sheffield. 99th minute penalty, only for Bayern to come out and truck them in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it sucked.
And then obviously Forrest takes care of on Sunday in a meaningless win. Never in doubt. But Bayern's -450 hosting our boys from Istanbul, who are 11-1 here, and the draw is 6-1. I'm going to be on the tried and true money line here from the conqueror of Europe. Everybody in this group is playing high event. Like every match has kind of been bonkers. Bayern's had 14 total goals in their 3 matches. Obviously, the lion's share scored by them, 9-4, but still 5 against. Galatasaray, 6 goals for, 7 against for 13. Man United, 6 goals for, 7 against for 13. And Copenhagen, believe it or not, have been the lowest event with 8 goals total, 3, 4, 5 against in their 3 matches. And this group is sitting quite nicely for the stretch here. Bayern's at the top of the table, 3-0-0 and 9 points. Then Galatasaray at 4 points, just ahead of United, who are on 3, and then Copenhagen is still very much alive on 1 point. But I think what we've learned from this about this Galatasaray team is just their game. Like they have a lot of guys who are just past their salad days in terms of like a long, grueling Premier League, Bundesliga plus Champions League season. Like this team probably doesn't hold up. But in their situation, like these guys can beat anybody on their night. They're almost like one of those like barnstorming testimonial teams, like World All-Stars coming to yeah, Harlem Globetrotters. They come into town. You play them right before the season starts. It's a testimonial match or something, and it sounds tongue in cheek, but it's true. Like these guys, they're good enough. They're just flat out good enough to give anybody a game. And I think 11-1 is so much fun. This is, I think, as good an 11-1 underdog as you're going to find all year in the Champions League, or maybe in soccer generally. Like this team is way too good to be this high. Anthony.
I mean, think about this. We were just talking, Luton Town heartbreak. If you had their money line, I know they took some. Like, would you rather bet Luton Town at 12-1 or Galatasaray?
Both.
Yeah. Right.
But the answer is both, of course. But yeah, I like Gala first half money line 7-1 more than the full game, because I think there was evidence that they ran out of gas in the 75th minute.
They did.
And then as spaces opened up and Bayern goes to their reserves, and like they're still just as good. And then Galatasaray went to the bench and it wasn't as good. Bayern took control a little bit, but like, let's not sugarcoat what happened in the first leg. And I tweeted at halftime of what a joke that line was. And that was one of the worst lines you'll see all year. And look, that doesn't mean it's going to win, but Galatasaray catching a goal and a half at home in that match was ridiculous. And if you go through the expected goals, the shot chances, Galatasaray finished the game with 2.7 expected goals. Icardi could have scored 3 in the first half. Mm-hmm. The first half was a complete one-way traffic for Gala. Total shots 16-3. 16-3 in the first half of the game. It's unbelievable. But then again, Bayern takes the last 9 of the match. So, and then of course, Gala scores a consolation goal, gets called off for VAR. When you think about how this match works, right? Like Bayern, it's going to be very open, back and forth. And we just saw them play Dortmund and beat the shit out of Dortmund, and they're certainly capable of doing that. But based on what we saw in the first leg and what we saw against Copenhagen, like this success in Germany has not translated to the Champions League yet. And they cost me money this weekend. I will not deny it. Hand up, bad bet. But I'm back, baby. I'm back. And they have not broken my spirit at all. I have a vengeance against this team. And I will be taking Galatasaray +2 and first half money line. Bayern cannot keep getting away with this.
Yeah, I'll take it one step further. For the first hour of the match, the shots were 19-5. And of those 19 shots, 13 of them came inside the penalty area. So it wasn't like just Galatasaray was just taking shots from nowhere. It was everything was inside the box, high quality chances, 3 of them inside the 6-yard box. But of course, the only goal they can score is from a penalty. Now, what I found very interesting from a tactical perspective of what Galatasaray was able to do successfully and what they can repeat in Munich is, Bayern is obviously a possession dominant side. So they are not used to playing out of possession for large stretches, which is what happened in the match against Turkey. Now, that's not saying it's going to happen here, but what they kept doing is they were just playing so incredibly wide, because Bayern was very, very narrow. They were like, we're not playing through the middle of the pitch. And once we win the ball, obviously, what does Bayern want to do? They want to play right through the middle, route one, and score their chances in transition that way. That's what they did Dortmund this weekend. Galatasaray was trying to get 2v1s out wide. And then once they got the ball out wide and they started to stretch Bayern out and force them out of this narrow mid-block, they were just switching the play to the other side of the field. And then the fullbacks had acres of space to create a chance via cross. So again, you have to ask yourself, is this repeatable in Munich? Well, they're going to need a lot of the ball to be able to do that. So that's where things can go wrong. If Bayern controls a lot of possession, then yeah, of course. But Bayern also turned the ball over high quite a few times against Galatasaray. Their counter press was working very, very well in Turkey. So yeah, I mean, they won the expected goals battle. They outshot Bayern. They outplayed them for the first hour, and then they tired out. I agree, Michael. You're not going to find a better 11-1 underdog. So I like Galatasaray +2. Even just from a market perspective, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but Bayern closed at minus 1.25 on the road in that first leg, or I don't know. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and
Yep.
but based on my projections, home field advantage is worth about 0.35 goals in the Champions League, maybe a little bit more than that. So if you are just taking purely what happened from that, that line of 1.25 and you add it on, I mean, you're getting around 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, somewhere in there. There's value in Galatasaray, even if that first leg went essentially according to plan from underlying metrics, and it didn't. They beat them. So they should getting a bump in the market here, and they're not. So Galatasaray +2 for me.
Love this team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
God.
And
And it's funny because
look, they might not advance, but 4-1 was the worst price in the whole group, in the whole Champions League this year to advance.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And I'm going to mention something when we get to the next match in this group,
and
because there might be a better price on another team to advance out of this group that's looking kind of tasty right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
We get like, because we do have lead towards betting underdogs, and that means we bet bad teams all the time, and it's almost like we're trying to convince ourselves to do it, because it does take some kind of gumption to bet teams like Sheffield United, and even I know they won this week, but like week in and week out. But this team just deserves it. Like they're easy. This is an easy one to bet on. Like they're it's a lot of fun to hitch your wagon to this team. So
yeah, they were better.
Get on board. Get on board with Galatasaray. Yeah.
They completely took me out of the game in the first leg. That was what I noticed.
Yeah, and they've been impressive in every. Like that draw. The draw against Copenhagen was funky, but over the course of their. Over the course of the Champions League, I've grown more and more confident in their ability in this tournament. So, as rabble rousers, up the conqueror of Europe, another big underdog that we like is Braga, traveling to the Santiago Bernabeu to take on Madrid. Basically the same odds as Galatasaray and Bayern. Madrid sitting minus 450, Braga 11-1, and the draw is plus 550. Real Madrid has this habit, and I know that this version of Real Madrid has nothing to do with the one 4 years ago, but it is pretty funny that they just have this habit of losing one stunner basically every Champions League and then winning the Champions League or going to the final. And this one just smells like it's going to be the one. At home, kind of a dangerous, sleepy spot for them. When you consider the table, they're perfect right now, doing what Bayern does: 3 wins, 6 goals scored, 3 against, clear of the table. Braga can make it interesting with a win. It's Real Madrid on 9, Napoli on 6, Braga on 3, and Union at the foot with 0. So it's just like going according to plan, and then all of a sudden something just funky will happen with Madrid. And this feels like it. And I know that this doesn't sound like a great handicapping angle, but you two are going to back it up with numbers, BJ.
Yeah, so the big talking point is Jude Bellingham might not play in this match. He has a shoulder injury. Ancelotti says he hopes he'll play on Wednesday. That's pretty massive to what we've seen from Real Madrid so far.
Just don't play him.
Yeah.
Please don't play him.
Exactly. So, the first match, I'll say this about Braga. They are a team that's good with time and space on the ball. And I think you saw that with how passive Real Madrid can be out of possession. I thought they created a lot of good chances that way. But one thing's got to change for Braga, and I'm guessing it was because of the game state, because they fell behind in the first 15 minutes. Vinicius cooked the right back for Braga. Like that just happens when you're betting these type of underdogs. But they were playing a really high line against Real Madrid, which is very, very dangerous thing to do against Rodrigo and Vinicius. And they got a couple offsides off of it, but it was incredibly risky. And they're obviously doing that because they wanted to get back into the game. They wanted to apply pressure on Real Madrid when they had them in their own final third. Now that we're going to the Bernabeu, I think you'll see a different game plan from Braga, one that's more low blocky, not as aggressive, obviously depending on game state or what happens. But listen, they won the expected goals battle in this first leg in Braga. It was 1.5 to 0.9. Essentially, the first cross that goes in, is the one essentially big chance that Real Madrid's, creates. And then outside of that, it was just kind of a bunch of shots from distance. Bellingham scores from, right on the edge of the 18-yard box. It's just what he does. But if he doesn't play, and Tchouameni is also out either, Tchouameni is also out for Real Madrid. It's not an ideal scenario, because now you have to ask the question of what does Real Madrid do? Because now they've switched their formation to this 4-3-1-2 with Bellingham as a box invading striker. So now it's going to be Joselu up top, and it's going to be your traditional 4-3-3, which if you're going to play a 4-4-2 low block, which is what Braga can play, you're asking a lot of questions from this Real Madrid attack. So Braga +2 at -130 right now. Bellingham doesn't play. I don't see how Braga doesn't close at +1.5 here. I think he's worth that much to this. So Braga, this, and they will be. I forgot to mention this with Galatasaray, but we're just going to do a nice little underdog parlay. We don't have to each do one this week, but at least I'll be doing it. It's going to include Galatasaray, Braga, and then one more team we're going to talk about. And maybe I'll make a graphic for it and tweet it out. Who knows? But it's going to pay probably our biggest price ever.
Man.
I know
right,
you are.
Anthony, your thoughts
quick,
on?
BJ mentioned it, and I agree. Real Madrid's lack of a press made it very easy for Braga to play their way into the game, and I think that's the key here. Real Madrid right now, with the way that they're playing, defensively leaky, is making them a more vulnerable favorite than normal. And they win every game in the last minute. Today, it was hilarious. In stoppage time, the ref was just saying, no, we're just going to keep playing until Madrid goes up 1-0. And then eventually he was like, well, we're already like 3 minutes past the allotted time, so I got to call the game now. But it was insane. I mean, they were giving him every chance to score. Vinicius Jr. has taken a step back. If you look at his production numbers this year, they're down. And I know there's been some off the field stuff with him, and the people of Spain have been rather racist toward him, and so there's a lot of stuff going on off the field that's impacting Vinicius. But his numbers are like way down. There was also an injury. His shot quality has fallen off this season, so I'm a little bit concerned about what happens when Bellingham stops scoring every match, which will happen at some point. That being said, agree. Braga. Real Madrid has conceded in the last 6 matches 1.6, 1.9, 0.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5 expected goals against, some decent competition. Barca, Sevilla, Braga, Napoli, Girona, Osasuna. But every decent team they've played this season, from Vigo to Sociedad to Atleti, has created well over 1 expected goal. And it's very hard, very, very hard to cover 2 when you're giving up that much possession, that much quality, and you're not pressing and just smushing teams. So yeah, Braga for me.
Yeah, Bruma also didn't start in this last match against Real Madrid. He's obviously their most important, impactful attacking player. So I'd like to see him start and have more of an impact and along the wings. But one thing also about Braga, and I'll mention it, is just that Arsenal's now a ball circulation team. That's what Braga does in the Portuguese league. They just circulate the ball around the 18-yard box and look for chances that way. So if you're playing a team that's passive like Real Madrid, that style can work.
Another La Liga team now. Sociedad is -110 at home, hosting Benfica, who are +300, and the draw here is +260. I think it's pretty fair to put Benfica on corpse watch, which is a term I'll borrow from our colleague Stuckey from the BBOC podcast when it comes to college football and teams that are just kind of playing out their schedule. And that, I think, kind of matters here, especially with the way Sociedad's been playing. They've allowed 1 goal so far in the Champions League. They've looked terrific, and they're just executing their game plan, and it's working. And this Benfica team, as we pointed out, just isn't all that good compared to what we saw last year. It does seem the price is a little inflated. Obviously, an upgrade and downgrade situation here, but still, Anthony, a little bit of value on the team from the Basque country.
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced the market's adjusted right. You go back and look at the game they played against Barca today. They were very good. Saturday, rather. You expect their full lineup here, which is big for them. Like I said on the 2 weeks ago, like if they don't attack with a lot of numbers, so who they have available is important. The match against Benfica at Benfica, they pretty much just smushed them and gave them nothing in terms of quality chances. Benfica finished the game with 10 shots and 0.48 expected goals. So it was really bad at home. Now they go on the road. I've got the better team. I'm at home, and I only have to lay minus 110. I'm going to bet Sociedad again. I bet Benfica against Benfica every match in this tournament, and I'm going to make it 4. Might be the last time we get to fade them, though, because they're going to be really, really cheap against Inter in the next match, I think. So that could be an interesting, like, dead cat bounce spot, but this is a fade for me again with Sociedad moneyline at home.
All right, BJ. Let's talk about that ball circulation team from North London now. Arsenal's minus 334 hosting Sevilla 9-1, and the draw is plus 450. What do you got for us?
Well, Michael, I try to be a good fan.
Is this a nil-nil?
I try.
It's not a goal. Don't ask me why. It's not a goal.
Nil-nil?
Not a goal.
I don't really care. I'll be honest, we got to create better chances. Mikel Arteta needs to shut up, okay? Because we have to create more than one expected goal for you to complain about that decision going against us. Yeah. I watched it back and I was like, yeah, maybe it was a push, like maybe whatever. But like, we got to create more chances. Like we can't just like, I get it. If we created like 2 XG and the ball just didn't go in and that was one fluke thing that they had, like that's great. But like, it was a very back and forth match. And for him to just complain like that, like, dude, play the ball through the middle of the pitch. Like for the love of God, like we cannot do anything through the middle. We're just circulating the ball back and forth to nothing. I try to come on this podcast and I try to give the positive spin. I try to be the fan that says, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's okay. But I can't come out here and do that anymore. It's terrible. It sucks. I can't lay it minus 1.5 against Sevilla. We got the win against them. I won my Super Bowl in Spain. I'm not laying minus 1.5 here. It just sucks. Like we can't.
I'm not kidding when I say it. I think this is a decent 0-0 bet.
But Sevilla's so bad defensively. It's really, really bad. I mean, they got
the shit kicked out.
I know, but
they got trucked by Vigo this weekend. They got luck boxed into a red card and ended up drawing. But
it's 16-1, 0-0.
That's actually not bad.
BJ, what's worse, Arsenal offense or Iowa offense?
Here's what I'll say about that. I know what to expect from the Iowa offense, and that's no offensive touchdowns. I've already accepted that, and that's just a reality of my life. I did not expect this from Arsenal. So it's more painful to watch from Arsenal at this juncture. And it only happens against good defensive teams. Like they have been good against bad teams. They have been able to get margin against them. But my God, just like I saw the graphic that in terms of chances created by location on the pitch, Arsenal's dead last in the Premier League through the central part of the pitch. Like that is incredibly embarrassing. Like you have to be able to play through the center of the pitch if you're going to be a title challenger, quite frankly, because that's where the goals are.
The biggest difference between this week and 2 weeks ago is that Gabriel Jesus will not be suiting up for the Gunners, and he did the 2 goals.
Yeah.
So, and
more 0-0.
Way his pass through the center of the pitch sent Martinelli in behind. So,
yep,
I'm close on Sevilla.
That's the problem. And I tweeted out, go look at the pass map from Arsenal Newcastle. It's just like, it's the quintessential poster of ball circulation. It's just passes back and forth outside the 18-yard box. That's it. So I'm frustrated because our manager is focusing too much on one decision when the reality is he sees there's too much game control and he's not taking very many chances. And that is annoying to me as someone who likes to take a lot of chances.
All right, let's cruise through a couple of these ones before I want to close with what I think is going to be our favorite match, maybe to bet on Wednesday. So let's cruise through some of the other ones. Salzburg are plus 450 hosting Inter. Inter's minus 163. The draw is 3-1. Anthony, I think that the Salzburg team still profiles decently as an underdog, especially at home. But that lone win looks a lot worse now with the way that Benfica is playing. So I don't think that this number's big enough.
Yeah, they were largely uncompetitive against Inter.
Yeah.
They weren't competitive against Sociedad. Like you said, they got the nice win at Benfica, but they have not played well in this group. And like this just looks like a worse version of Sociedad or of Salzburg. And we said before the group, like we'll find out how good are these young guys, and they're okay. They're not a bad team, but they're not anywhere where I would look to back them here in this spot. Inter could rotate a little. That's one thing I'm a little, be wary of that because they have rested Thuram in their last road match in the Champions League. When they went to Sociedad, they rested him. So like Alexis Sanchez maybe comes into the team and he's been on the pitch. He's been really good. So
yeah,
I'm intrigued by it, but yeah, no bet.
BJ, we'll talk right now. PSV and Lens minus 134 for PSV at home. The French side traveling at plus 350 and the draw is plus 350. Not terribly interesting.
Yeah, well, PSV has taken a ton of money.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean,
it's a must-win spot. I wonder if that's factoring in a little bit, but
they weren't really that good in the first leg, to be honest. I mean, PSV created half an expected goal, like that was it, and then they obviously went ahead and kind of sat back a little bit. Lens got the equalizer, but yeah, I don't really see. From watching that match, I don't really see anything that gets me to PSV getting to this number now. I mean, I only projected PSV around even money against Lens at home, so I'm not going to touch the opposite side because I still am kind of downs on this Lens team. They had a very sleepy 0-0 draw against Lorient over the weekend. So yeah, the market movement on this is a little puzzling to me. I'll just say that.
Fair enough. All right, our penultimate match, Napoli minus 250. You got to lay it against Union plus 700, and the draw is plus 375. Another pretty easy pass, I think, for me. I know, BJ, you're looking at the total.
Market is settled a lot on this Union team, and I'm not sure they're that different from last year.
They're not
I know they've lost 12 in a row, and it's insane to say that. I'm not sure their defense is obviously worse, but their attack looks the same to me. This was the same price Real Madrid closed in the first match of this tournament. Napoli without Osimhen probably. He's like questionable here. Like that's a little high for me. So I think I like under more because like there's no real scenario where Union is piling up goals here. But I lean toward them, the dog here. I think they're a little bit intriguing to cover, maybe not win.
Yeah,
I mean, I like the lower than on a
hard
team.
to buy lower.
Yeah, I like the under here. I agree with Anthony. Nothing happened in the first match. It was 0.08 or 0.8 XG created total in the entire match. I mean, Union just sat deep and dared Napoli to break them down, and they couldn't for large stretches of the match. Again, without Osimhen, what's going to change in this leg? Obviously, game state matters. If it stays 0-0 for longer, that obviously benefits Union Berlin. But there's an old saying, and obviously in terms of teams overperforming their underlying metrics, it's just you cannot outrun math. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's just the truth of what's happened with Union Berlin. It's obviously swung, the extreme the other way. And I'm not sure how their manager still has his job, quite frankly, at this point. I know he's done a lot for them to get them to this point, but at some point, So at some point, things are going to have to change for Union. Maybe we won't see the 3-5-2 low block special anymore. But yeah, no, I do like the under 2.5 at plus 104. It hasn't really changed from the first leg, and nothing happened. So I'm guessing nothing's probably going to happen here in the second leg. And just as I say that, it'll probably be a 3-2 thriller.
And that brings us to the finale for this episode, and it's a beautiful finale. Season 8 of Scrubs level finale for us. Copenhagen plus 320 hosting Manchester United. We're odds on the road. And the draw is plus 275. I think this is such a good bet on Copenhagen. Doesn't mean it's going to win, but you're just catching this United team. Yeah, they beat Fulham. How'd they do it? I mean, the last time they played Copenhagen, they won. How'd they do it? Like, this is a team that's like got its back against the wall and just throwing haymaker after haymaker. Like, it's just like
They're running
with their
so
eyes closed.
good.
I know, it's incredible.
They're running unbelievably well.
They are running so well.
Fulham, outplayed by Brentford, outplayed by Copenhagen, and they won all the games.
Yeah.
4 stoppage time goals, or 3 stoppage time goals and a stoppage time penalty
and a penalty save. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, wait a minute. Copenhagen.
What I would just give for a team.
We're like, well, we like them at home, but their defense doesn't really travel. They get smoked usually on the road. That's what usually the story of Copenhagen is. Last year, City, Dortmund in the Champions League group, they outplayed both. There was a red card in the City game. They outplayed Dortmund at home. Like, they were a decent side. This year, they've taken their show on the road. They went to Galatasaray. And look, that result where they played bad in the first half, but played even with Galatasaray and drew them after getting a red card, that result is aging really well. They play Bayern. You know, look, I'm down on Bayern, but like, Bayern is still good. And they held them under 1 expected goal in that match. Then they go to this theater of dreams and outplay United for large stretches of that match. So, you know, maybe you bet Copenhagen. And if you need a live hedge, you grab some Scotty anytime. But I mean, like, there's
Onana to save a PK.
Yeah, Matt Schwimmer, friend of the pod, is going to be at the park on Wednesday, and he texted me for a bet, and I was like, dude, it's Copenhagen. It's always Copenhagen. Are we buying a little high? Maybe, because the market has come down. They were like minus 140, now it's down to like minus 115. But I'm sorry, this could be it for Ten Hag.
But they won against Fulham, so I don't think so.
This is it.
No, I think because they won against Fulham, I think he's fine now. I think if they would have drawn that match against Fulham and then lost this one, then yeah, it would have been over. They got I know who they have coming up next after this Copenhagen match.
I know, yeah, they've got Luton and then Everton.
Yep.
They've got and that's the other thing about this is they had like, let's look at their United's last 6 matches across all competitions. Brentford, Sheffield United, Copenhagen, got trounced by City, then they got trounced by Newcastle.
Newcastle's beat them, by the way.
Newcastle was, yeah, and I mean, it was a changed squad for United too at home, and whatever. It's a weird EFL Cup game, and then Fulham. So they played basically nobody. I mean, when you look through their schedule in a list, like, you'll be like, okay, we remember that Wolves win. Got knocked across the face against Tottenham. Lucky win against Forest. Pants by Arsenal. Pants by Brighton. Lose to Bayern. Beat Burnley. Beat Crystal Palace. Lose to Palace. Lose to Galatasaray. It's just like, this team, there's no team bad enough in any of the competitions that they're going to be playing. There's just no team bad enough that United should be a road favorite.
No. And I'll tell you what about that first leg. I mean, Copenhagen punched them in the mouth right away. If you remember, they hit the woodwork in the 5th minute of a huge chance that could have put them up 1-0. And what ended up happening in that match is Copenhagen sat in a low block, which they were effective with against Bayern and effective again with United, because United has nobody to connect the play from their back 3 to get the ball up to their front line. You saw it against Fulham. They have no way to play through the middle of any type of low block. And there were often times against Copenhagen where we talk about build-up structures. They were trying to do a 3-1-6, but they just don't have anybody in that one spot who can connect it. Nobody like a a Frankie de Jong or a Declan Rice or somebody like that. So it ended up being a 3-0-7. They just were just trying to send long balls from the back line up to the front and just hope for the best. Rashford missed the match against Fulham. I don't know if he's going to play in this one. We'll have to see. That's obviously a massive loss for United, who are getting very little production out of Højlund right now. So what's going to change for United in the second leg, especially going on the road to Copenhagen? How are they going to build up and break down this low block if they weren't able to do it effectively in the first leg? Is there just going to have to be some more magic like it was against Fulham? That's what it's going to have to take. So for all you Wondergoal fans out there who are fans of our big parlays, this is our biggest one. Copenhagen plus 320, Braga 11-1, Galatasaray 11-1, pays out 603-1. That's the parlay for this, and it's all on Wednesday in the Champions League too. But no, from a normal bet,
bet them separately. That's what I usually do. Bet them separately.
A little bit separately. We're not gonna go all in on this parlay, no, but
lose everything.
Yeah. Well, we'd be on probably on a beach in Monaco somewhere if we put everything on this in at one. But no, I do like Copenhagen.
If this wins, I'll be in Cabo in December. You can find me there.
But I do have United in this match, just real quick from a projection standpoint, just to, obviously things were a little crazy in that first leg, but I do have United only at about plus 135 here. So I do actually project quite a bit of value on Copenhagen here at home.
It's a great bet. All right, that does it. Great note to end it on. Another Manchester United fade. Pretty excited to see what rabbit they pull out of the hat in Denmark, and we can lament about it on our next episode. We will be back on on Thursday morning for the Premier League, and then it's an international break again right after that, right?
Yep. After that, we got an international break.
So we got a couple more, and then after that, we get into the festive fixtures and all that jazz. So hopefully this Champions League stuffs our pockets, and we can get ready to bet those with an added bankroll. For BJ Cunningham, Anthony DeBundo, I'm Michael Leboff. Thank you again for listening to Wondergoal. Thank you to our sponsors, Bet365. Thank you to our producer, Noah. We will see you again in a couple days.